The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific. The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. We're having some fun here at the studio this morning, so bear with us. I'm here to announce to you, by the way, I'm Shannon Penrod and we're Autism Live. It's Wednesday, very excited to be here this morning. Want to remind you that our entire show is interactive and that you can participate with us. But I want to tell you, normally on Wednesdays, we have Dr. Doreen Granpeche live with us. But every once in a while, we cannot. And this is one of those mornings when we cannot have her with us live. I know it's a big, but we've got a big show for you anyway. I don't want you to go anywhere because in just a few minutes, we are going to play an oldie but a goodie of Ask Dr. Doreen from August 5th of 2015. Great questions, a mixture of questions for everybody who's on the spectrum. And then in our second hour, we are going to have Let's Talk, and that will be live. In the second hour, we'll be back live with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be here with me. And our very special guests today, for the first time ever on our show, Chantal and Jeremy Sicile-Kira. I always get the last name a little confused. Sicile-Kira, they're both going to be with us. And Jeremy is an amazing artist. Chantal is one of those fabulous super moms, written several books, is a tremendous advocate and really a person who's very responsible for a lot of parents out there getting a lot of good information about autism and getting a good education about autism. So we're going to be talking about all of that with them during our Autism Family Portraits that are coming up in the second hour. You're really going to love Jeremy's art. He's a brilliant and talented artist. So that's all coming up. But as I said, first we're going to have our Ask Dr. Doreen from August 5th of 2015 with a wide variety of topics. Don't forget that the show is still interactive. You can still be sending in questions. If we have an opportunity, tomorrow we might get to some questions, but we'll have Dr. Doreen back with us next week and we keep all of our questions. So, but first, here is Ask Dr. Doreen from August 5th of 2015. And we're going to jump in with a question. Somebody wrote in and said, my Asperger's 14-year-old son has sensory issues while cleaning his teeth and taking a bath. When he cleans his teeth, he says his ears and head itch him. And when he bathes, he feels like he is in prison, sometimes gasping for breath. And what can we do to help him?
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating. One of the things that has changed in autism, perhaps, or we're learning more, is this whole sensory aspect of autism. Of course, in the old days, there used to be a lot of children who would have very significant sensory problems and would really, I remember one of the early diagnostic criteria, and I'm not sure, the DSM-3 maybe, was insensitivity to pain. And it just, you know, a lot of the kids would just fall and injure themselves and not have any sensation of it. Now we look at sensory issues and they vary. You know, cleaning your teeth, I can imagine, would be somewhat of a sensory problem. It's understandable, but he's also saying that it hurts his ears or itches his ears And I don't know if he has allergies. You really might want to have an allergist take a look and see if he has allergic reaction to anything, or if he's just, to pollen and so on, has slight allergies. Because then, if you're on an antihistamine or some sort of medication for allergies, it might resolve that altogether. Because itching is not a common issue when it comes to sensory dysregulation in our kids. Right. Itching could very well be a real allergy. So let's first of all rule that out. Now, once you've done that, I would say that you just need to get very sensitive toothpaste, Sensodyne, I guess, and very soft bristles, and allow him to do the best he can with it. And I don't think that beyond that you can do too much. In regards to bathing, I think that I'm not sure, I understand he's still taking a bath. Perhaps you would try a shower instead, and perhaps you would give him a handheld shower so that he has control over where the water goes, so that he doesn't feel like he's suffocating in the bath water. I don't know if the heat is too much for him. Generally, if it's too high of a heat level, then we gasp for air. So just play with those things. I mean, these are essential activities for him. They're hygiene activities. So you do need him to continue to do them. Making them a little bit easier this way, giving him control. Generally, if you give someone control over something that's uncomfortable, they do much better with it. Discomfort tends to increase when it's unpredictable. So, that's why really good dentists, for instance, will tell you everything they're about to do, and that helps because you're prepared a little bit. So if he's holding a handheld shower, for instance, it'll help him because he will actually be able to put the water on himself and remove it rather than being in a bath where you're stuck. And then I would reward him more, increase your reinforcers for things that are difficult. So these are difficult tasks for him, so make sure he has a high reward after doing these tasks.
Wonderful. Great, great advice. And then always, we love it when you guys write in and let us know what you did and how
Absolutely.
It worked and what the results were, because, and I think the audience loves that too, the rest of the audience, because we learn from each other. So it's a great opportunity. Moving on to another question. Good morning, ladies. I have a teenage son with autism. If he is mad at me, usually over something really minor, he completely ignores me the rest of the day. No eye contact, no response. It's like he can't get over whatever little thing happened. What can I try to improve communication? And thanks.
Right. I noticed that you skipped one that was just telling you what a wonderful show you have.
I did skip that because I wanted to address that, and I wanted you to see how much people love the show. But
no, that's wonderful. Yeah,
it's
lovely to see that, and it's lovely to see people writing in from other countries,
yes.
Such as India. That's wonderful.
And we totally appreciate.
We do.
We, like everybody else, love the reinforcement. And
we need the reinforcement.
And and honestly, because I have said to our audience, sometimes it feels like I call this my padded room sometimes, right? Because there is some padding, and that sometimes it feels like we are in here by ourselves.
Oh yeah, of course.
And we are always thinking about all of you and hoping that you're getting what you want out of this, but we don't know for sure unless you tell us.
It's true.
So.
I don't know how you do this, actually. I was thinking about it. Wednesdays are pretty fun. I mean, after this show, it's of course Nancy, and Nancy's always fun to have. I can talk to Nancy for hours, and I wouldn't even know how that passes. But it is a tough job to be doing this 3 times a week. It's very tough.
It is, but it's also a great gift to me.
It absolutely is.
And I get to meet people I would never have met.
It's fabulous.
And I get to learn things that I don't know that I would have learned.
Right.
And it's different every day. And
right.
So don't feel bad for me.
That's very nice. Good, thank you.
It's wonderful.
So going back to this question, I never mean to make an issue small, but I love this issue. It's sort of a nice thing to have, is that it shows how intelligent and sophisticated your son's thinking is, that he holds a grudge. I mean, holding a grudge is actually a kind of a very sophisticated cognitive factor, because you really have to remember something that occurred that might have been minor, that offended you. And usually we hold grudges, not over not over like things that are very direct, but more abstract things
Right.
that somehow hurt our ego. So in that sense, it's kind of a nice thing that your son is doing that. I mean, I would say the best thing you can do in this kind of scenario is probably, if something like that happens, make sure that you don't address it. Don't try to go up and like beg him to forgive you or pay attention. Don't do any of that. But rather engage in something extremely fun that he loves, that he loves, and do it very overtly so that he's aware that you're doing it. And I think he might engage with you then.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like entice him.
Absolutely. We've had a little bit of this behavior with someone I know
Yeah.
and love. And
This is a very typical, I mean, everybody does this.
yeah, it's horrifying when it happens because it doesn't feel good. But I've tried to remember, I think we've had a question like this before. I've tried to remember that it is a quality problem.
Right.
And
it's a typical, it's not just in our kids, This
Right.
is something that a lot of adults do.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need a longer period of time to
Yes.
cool off.
And honestly, I feel like sometimes with Jem, I feel like more and more I get better of going, okay, what is the function? Like that's almost the first thing that occurs to me. And that sometimes he just needs time.
Yeah.
And he will even say to me, I'm going to need some time to cool off with this.
Right.
And I'm like, all to the good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate, because I feel that way sometimes. I'm
Right.
upset about it. There's nothing you can say in this moment. I
Right.
just need a moment, that's fine. And
Yeah.
I really like to honor that. There are other times that I feel like he is doing that just to get my attention. And those are the ideal times, like you said, I go and do something fun and then he gets right over it.
That's right. So therefore, whether it's either a condition, the best thing to do is just to ignore and move on with your life. It's one of those things that our kids learn if they see. It's not an issue when they do it to you. I mean, we as parents can handle this kind of stuff, right? Because nothing is about us; it's about them.
Right.
But when it comes to the point where the individual does this with peers, and then peers just walk away and they're like, what's wrong
Right.
with him?
Yeah.
That is not good because now it's affecting his social life.
Right.
And so, but it's one of those natural things that happens where if your teenager actually wants to have friends, he will learn that doing that type of behavior is affecting his friendships. But for now, I would say this is how you handle it. You move on. You just move on and you do something fun. I remember when my kids were little, I used to do that all the time, no matter, even if they were holding a grudge or not. Like immediately, as soon as some sort of tough situation or argument was, once it had escalated and was now over, I would immediately divert to some other fun activity because you really want to teach your children to move to the next session
Right.
of life,
Moving on.
Move on.
Moving on, which reminds me that I keep reminding our folks that the last Wednesday of the month we're having Byron Katie on the show.
Right.
A great
was gonna ask you about
person
that.
for learning how to move on off of something when you get stuck on an emotion or a page that you just can't seem to get off of, and making it productive. Great things. She will be with us on that last Wednesday of the month. All right, moving on to this next question, which unfortunately I fear is all too common in terms of the situation. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I'm currently going through the process of getting a divorce. My daughter is almost 4 and she has high functioning ASD and sensory processing disorder. She has started showing some unwanted behaviors that I'm having trouble dealing with. One is increased aggression towards her younger brother, and the other is urinating on my furniture and carpet. I know a lot in her environment has changed, but how do I make the transition more smooth for her and stop the unwanted behaviors? Her father also is not calling or seeing her that often, which is causing her lots of distress. And I'm also seeing a huge increase in her self-regulating behaviors. She's jumping a lot, rocking, vocal stereotypy, and flapping. Any advice would be great, and they have sent an email so that we can get back to them, which is why I'm not sharing the question on the live feature.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm really sorry. That's a very difficult time that this parent is going through. I'll give some basic advice, but I really think that more importantly, this is a time where you need some support. That would be my first piece of advice, is try to get some help right now, because whatever advice I give, it's going to really require a lot of time. So you need to have an individual who's helping you carry out all of this sort of stuff. And I would imagine you need some support yourself anyway. But, these are behaviors that cannot be handled with a reprimand here or there or an occasional change in consequence or an occasional change in antecedent. It's more or less someone has to be with her, most of her waking hours. So she's 4 years old, she's high functioning, and she has some sensory processing issues, which a lot of our kids now do. She's showing increased aggression towards her younger brother, and she's also urinating on the furniture and the carpet. Let's not make the assumption that all of this is due to the divorce. Let's just identify the function of each behavior. Okay. So separately, you will need to see when does this aggression towards her younger brother occur. And these are completely separate behaviors, so we will look at each one individually. So you want to see when the aggression towards the younger brother occurs. You immediately want to look at the antecedents and consequences when that occurs. So for instance, she aggresses towards her brother when he takes away a toy. That's a common scenario. So then she's actually aggressing towards him because he has taken something away from her. So she's trying to get that object back. So you would need, in that scenario, the intervention would be that she should be prevented from doing the aggression, but taught how to ask appropriately and then given a chance at the toy. So, or she should, or if you can't do that, then the situation needs to be avoided altogether. In other words, she should not be allowed to be in the same room playing with the brother so that that could occur. So every scenario has its own type of function, and that's very important. Let's assume she aggresses towards the brother when she wants attention from you. That's another thing, and we have to think, why is that happening? Well, every time she hits her brother, you come out to give her and the brother some attention. Perhaps you give the brother good attention and her bad attention. It doesn't matter. Attention is attention. And so she's learned, hey, if I want mom to pay attention, all I need to do is hit my brother. You really have to identify the function. And yes, we tend to act up when we are under new circumstances, like dad not being around, but we also have to adjust. And so it doesn't matter that you have to leave that alone for a minute and not focus on the fact that the divorce is happening, but really identify the function as it occurs that moment and figure out how to deal with it. And the same thing also for the urination. When is she urinating on the furniture? Is it right after something is taken away, right after a demand is placed? Is it when she has nothing else to do? Whatever the reason is, you then produce an intervention based on the reason. And that's why most of these types of behaviors are easy to eliminate when you have someone with the child most of the time. So that's why therapy is so important if you have a therapist, because the therapist will block and prevent most of these things from happening to begin with. And the therapist also gets to identify those kind of antecedent cues and can identify, oh, she's about to urinate. And so that means I know she urinates when she needs a break, or I'll teach her how to ask to go to the potty, or I'll teach her how to ask for a break, or maybe it's time for me to reinforce more, or those types of things. So each of those behaviors that are occurring, you just need to identify the functions separately. This is a situation where you have enough going on in your life that I really do recommend you have help.
Yeah.
If you can get help from a professional, that's absolutely the best thing, of course. Someone who's a BCBA or perhaps registered behavior technician, or has a board certification in autism, the BCAT, or some sort of certificate that shows that they know ABA, can easily help you with this. The self-regulating stuff, the jumping a lot, rocking, vocal stereotypy, and flapping perhaps is, kind of regulating her. I don't know. But again, if someone is with her, they will block those types of behaviors, prevent them from happening, and redirect them to more appropriate behaviors.
And can we talk for just a second about if you don't? Because for me, it seems like the danger in this is that, I think it's natural that as human beings we go, well, why is this happening? What triggered this? And then we look at the divorce and we, make that comparison. But for me, I feel like, and tell me if I'm in the wrong neighborhood, but so she's doing things to cope with whatever's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's learning from that. And if we don't prevent this, then this will be a thing that she does until she learns that it isn't effective, which could be when she's 42.
Or never.
Or never.
Yeah, and see, something like a divorce, something that's a chronic change. It's not an acute change. It is acute, but then it becomes chronic. It's long term. I see those as background factors. So, for instance, someone who doesn't sleep well, that's one, or someone who's just started a new school, or someone who, there's these factors that affect us kind of in the background and on a longer term. They're not provoking the specific behavior. They're just kind of, they sort of increase or reduce the threshold for us to lose it. So it's kind of like, I'm agitated because this divorce is happening. So I'm at a heightened state of agitation to begin with. So now if you place a demand on me, I'm going to hit my brother. Right. You know what I mean? So you're at a different, sort of your baseline changes because you're more irritated. But you can't change the base, you can't change that background thing. That background thing is there, and we have to acclimate, like you said. We have to get used to that. So what you do is you take the time to teach the individual that this behavior is not okay. Even if you're in a state of heightened agitation, it's just not okay. This is how we communicate. And, you teach an alternate form of communication that's acceptable. And yeah, you're very right, Shannon. I mean, these are the very important times where we have to teach our kids, I know you're stressed out. I know things might be tough, but it's still not okay to behave this way.
Yeah, and give them the better tools in life for them to have a more productive life. We talk about on this show that this show wants to cover autism from a 360-degree perspective. But I feel like you are the expert in the field that really gets it from the 360-degree perspective, that even before, when you were saying there are more things we need to know behaviorally, there are more things that we need to know biomedically. And so much of our world is segmented. You have the people who are doing behavior work and they don't want to talk about the biomed, but the parents do.
Yeah, even in the world of behavioral, there's a lot of splits.
Yes.
Not everybody thinks the same. So there's a lot of kind of division there. There's a huge amount of division when it comes to the biomedical issues, for sure. I mean, it's changing as everything does, but for God's sake, I was almost crucified for thinking that biomed is important.
Yeah.
Like, when was it, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a funny world.
It is a funny world, but we appreciate you, and I think that, from my point of view, I think that you are so amazing because you're constantly interested and curious in all kinds of things, and I think it comes from a place of security that you know what you're talking about. So of course you're curious to know more things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that comes from confidence, and we appreciate that, because I think a lot of people are so hotly defending their position that they can't hear anybody else.
And in positions of power, which is very, very sad. I think a few years ago at a national conference, at an ABA national conference, Jane Howard, who's a very high level behavior analyst, actually showed a video of me where I was speaking with a physician who was doing an interview, and I was basically saying that the medical interventions are very important for some of the children because we need to stabilize them medically and help them feel better so that ABA is actually more effective. And she showed that video and pointed it out as being extremely unethical, because as a behavior analyst, I shouldn't be recommending that anybody look at medical interventions. And it's really interesting for me because, and of course, she's in a very powerful position to not only influence other behavior analysts, but also parents. She has a clinic, she sees patients. And I feel bad about that, because I feel like there are so many parents that would be misguided. You can't, this is not just a learned disorder, obviously. It's not like we saw our children learn all these things. We can reverse them, most of the behaviors, but for God's sake, we have children who are, I always use this example, but I have children who have diarrhea 10 times a day, and it's ignored because people say, oh, he has autism. There's nothing to do with it. Let's treat his GI dysfunction. Exactly. And it's very important. Like I always say, Shannon, I'm very, very interested in helping on the biomedical side just because I find so many things are overlooked. Our children, so many of our children don't sleep. They really have very poor sleeping habits. Yes, some of it is behavioral generalization. You know, the child doesn't want to go to their own bed or something, but the majority of it is something else. Some of these kids are having seizures. Some are just having very sleep disturbance. Some are so sensory hyper that they hear everything and it wakes them up. I mean, honestly, and some are just have biochemical imbalances that wake them up. And you don't sleep, that's going to affect every other aspect of your life.
Well, it's just common sense.
Absolutely.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
take, you know, I mean, I don't have to have a PhD to think,
To say that, yeah.
And I think that a lot of parents come from that point of view and go, well, but if my child isn't healthy, what are we going to be accomplishing? It could be the best learning program in the world.
I feel.
But, you know, and I think that's what's refreshing, and we appreciate that you do see it from that 360-degree perspective. And that, you know, the first time I heard you speak and you talked about the whole child,
right,
I just went, oh, you know, this is amazing. I'm so lucky because I was already at CARD when I heard you say that.
Right.
But if I hadn't been, I would have been finding out where your office was to be with your team.
Well, thank you.
Because so few people are talking about that. So we appreciate this time. And we have some questions that have come in the live feature, but I want to take one more that came in earlier this week. From one parent to another, how can I help prepare my son for the upcoming departure of a therapist who has been with him for 2 years? I don't know what the replacement we eventually get along with pending interim reduction in services will ever be able to understand him as well. He gets very, very attached to people. After turning 3 and leaving early intervention, he would ask for his lead therapist for at least another year or 2.
Oh my gosh.
I just don't know how to help him with the transition when I am having a lot of trouble thinking of getting through it myself even.
I know. So this is it's a very difficult thing sometimes for our families. I find this to be the case because, you know, it's funny because initially it's such an intrusion when you have a team of 5 or 6 people at your house all the time, you know, and it's like you don't have a life. It's people are in and out.
Right.
But over years, you actually get so used to not only those people, but just having a team behind you, backing you, helping you, being part of your life, that it's very, very hard to give it up. You know, for your son, some of the things you can do are the following. Just make sure he understands. I mean, the goal here is to make sure he understands that he will continue to be able to have this person in their life, in his life, in some manner. So what I would really recommend, and sometimes what we do here when it's possible, is we will fade off so that the therapist is doing fewer sessions gradually. But then if your child, depending on the age of the child, it sounds like he's older because 3 is a few years ago, but you would want to make sure that they are in contact perhaps on, let's say, Skype, in contact on the phone perhaps. The therapist could, for instance, send small packages. So in other words, as the sessions decrease, the therapist can, on their own time, just call in and say, hi, how are you? Or just Skype in and wave, or maybe send something in the mail so that your son continues to have some form of contact. It may not be physical contact where the person is coming in, but it'll be other types of contact. Yeah. And really, that's the best you can do. And, you know, our children have to experience loss in their lives to some extent. But it sounds like if this is a therapist who's really attached and understands him, then it's probably a nice enough person who will stay in touch. Yeah. I'm in touch with families of kids and kids that I worked with 20 years ago, you know, more than 20 years ago. And it's really nice. It's very, very nice. So that's something that you could do. I always try to say that there's some benefit to having new people on your team. I just want to touch on that for a moment because you know how when our kids are little, we understand, as parents, we understand everything they say, but no one else does. You know, I remember when my son was little, even I couldn't really understand because he heard so many languages in the house. You know, there was German and English and Farsi, and there were many languages. So he had this it was hard to understand. It was like sort of a German accent mixed with very rapid speech. It was just a very funny. But the only person who could really understand when he was like 1 or 2 was his sister, Nikki. She understood pretty much. So she had to translate everything he said for a little while. He'd say something and she'd be like, he said, blah, 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 you know? And it was funny, but you know, that happens with our kids, that where they have a therapist who understands everything they're saying, but no one else does.
Right.
And it's important to have new therapists working with our kids, because the new therapist is less trained and therefore more resembles reality. Right. Because a really well-trained therapist is going to prompt him, is going to like be higher level of reinforcement than the normal environment, whereas a newer therapist will be closer to what he'll experience in the normal environment. So it's always good to have a rotation of therapists. It's tough. I'm not saying it's not easy and it doesn't always work out, but it's not easy. It's tough, but you know, it is for his benefit in the long run, and it's important that you do that. And I know that we depend on these folks. It's hard.
It is hard. They become part of your family, your extended family. And I just want to say as a parent that, you know, I really relate to this question, that we had so many therapists, right? But our personal autism whisperer on our team was Peter Farrig. And I get choked up whenever I talk about Peter because, you know, there's probably nothing I wouldn't do for Peter, for what he did for us. Right. But Peter left us a total of 3 times in our 5 years. And each time that he announced that he was leaving to go away, it was like a personal death to me.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, my son.
Because you worry, you're afraid.
You know, it was like being at a cliff, and how will we ever have this with somebody else? And somebody once reminded me, well, there was a period of time when you didn't know Peter Farrig.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another Peter Farrig that's going to come into your life.
Sure.
And we met lots of other therapists that helped our son along the way. And Peter would come back into our lives and go, look at what has happened with him. And it kind of became a thing with us, that a touchstone where Peter would come back in and see the improvement. And even 2 years ago when we were having a school issue and we asked Card to step in and take a look at things, and Peter was the person that got sent because he's had a through line with him. And Jem got to be the ring bearer in Peter's wedding. I mean, this is like, you know, Peter is family to me.
Yeah.
And if you quiet yourself with it and know that this person is not gone for you forever, that you can stay in contact if the person is okay with it. Obviously, it has to be okay on their side. That leave room for the fact that somebody else fabulous is going to come in, because we had other fabulous people that I would not have been open to if Peter had been there.
Absolutely.
That added to our team and brought something. And I will tell you, if you need something to get you in the mood to get it, there is the fabulous song from Wicked, For Good, that talks about people coming into your life for a reason and having to leave for a reason, and how they taught you something and they must go, and you've been changed for good.
Yeah.
It's
that's
beautiful.
That's in Wicked?
It's in Wicked.
Oh, okay.
I made a video when Jem graduated from Card, and the song below it is For Good, to talk about all the therapists that came in and changed all of us for good.
Right, absolutely. And you're so right, Shannon. Like, I look back at, I think it was the second au pair that I had when Nikki was a baby. And I cried when her time was over. Like, let me tell you, she was just with us for 6 months. I cried. I mean, she was just like a godsend, you know? And that was a very tough time for me. As first child, and I was working a lot, and I was growing Card, and it was a tough time. And I remember thinking, like, how am I ever going to manage? And then, of course, you do manage. And then, as you said, you know, the person who replaced her actually ended up being just as good, if not in a different way, you know, but just as good, and someone who also played a very important role in Nikki's development and in our lives. And after that, of course, we had maybe 10 other people who were just amazing. So I would say it is always, it's our own fears to a large extent.
And it is. Even here, you know, Emily was with us at the beginning of Autism Live, and Emily and I had this working relationship, and when Emily was leaving to go to the NFL Network, I was like, what will we ever do? We'll never survive. I can't ever. And then we
have Kelsey.
Yesterday was Kelby's 1 year anniversary.
No way. Well,
and or this in the
Congratulations,
last couple of
Kelby.
days. And I like if my life had never had Kelby in it, that would have been a horrible thing.
I know.
So
I agree.
you know, transitions are uncomfortable,
I
but
agree.
everything is changing always. We
That's
just have
so
to get
cool.
over wanting stasis, right?
That's right.
That's right. So in any case, okay, we had a question coming in the live feature this morning. Our lovely Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I have almost 6-year-old boy who is very smart and is doing great thanks to his ABA. Though his speech has improved a lot, he still does not initiate conversation or interactions. He also does not comment nearly as much as his peers do during the activity. If he's doing something, he usually is singing something. He might occasionally get my attention and tell me something about it, but not often. How can we increase his commenting, tacting, what he is doing and initiating? And thanks a lot with about 6 or 7 exclamation points.
That's great.
Thank you.
Let me just write notes.
Yes.
So I don't forget. Okay, and then the statement question. There's several lessons that are going to be useful to this family. You know, clearly you have some technical knowledge because you refer to how do we increase his tacting.
You're watching the
I know,
jargon.
I
We
love
love it.
So the tacting is basically, for those who aren't familiar with that term, is kind of labeling objects, you know, pointing out the names of things, or identifying things that way. Manding being the first form of communication is kind of requesting. So my assumption is that this child does mand pretty rapidly, frequently. I don't know, because if he or he doesn't, then you also want to increase rapid manding, so requesting for things. But tacting, you simply model. And the way to do that is you could do it when you're driving, you could do it at the house, whatever it is. You are modeling the frequent labeling and you're increasing its fluency. So, you know, the way that we do it is, you know, we'll teach the child a series of labels and then we will increase the speed of it and we will increase the duration. So I would be flipping pictures and the child would have to label them very fast. That fluency is a very, very important part of initiation of and maintenance of tacting. So, and then you would also just then increase, you would reward, like for instance, one of the ways that you reward is using a clicker for every tact. Anything that the child labels, you would increase. You would give a click for, and then the number of clicks would equate to some reward. Mm-hmm. So you generally want to work on just reinforcing and increasing the number of tacts and the duration of tacting. And that's just tacting, that's labeling. That's not necessarily going to increase initiation of conversation. Conversation is quite a different beast, and it involves a lot of different things. One big factor of conversation is reciprocity, being able to exchange. So you also have to kind of teach that, because you know, when you're tacting, you're just labeling. You know, there's a fire truck, this is green, there's the tree, oh, you know, those are just tacts. But when you're having a conversation, I'm basically saying something and then waiting for your reaction. And that exchange is kind of a difficult thing to teach. A couple of our lessons, first of all, we have a huge social conversations section, which is in our social curriculum, which I recommend you look at. Any of these lessons that I'm referring to are, of course, in the skills curriculum, and I really highly recommend that you look into the skills curriculum, because in the social conversation sections there you'll find tons, and I'm not sure if they're the social curriculum or language curriculum, but you'll find tons and tons of lessons that will focus just on conversational speech. For instance, one of the things that we do is this lesson called statements, where you begin with, you will say something like, you know, I have yellow, and then the child will have something in front of them and they'll say, I have green, whatever it is. And that is just teaching the child, the content doesn't matter what it is, right, but it's very basic exchange of information. Yeah. And then you'll take it to more advanced stuff, like I ate, you know, cereal for breakfast, and the child says what he ate, and yesterday I did whatever, and the child says, so it's just an exchange that's parallel, kind of. And then you take it to the next level lesson, which is statement question, and that is kind of like, you know, asking each other, it's saying a statement, and then the child, you have now a rotating question and right. statement.
So you
And-
say to me, I have yellow, and I say, do you like yellow?
Yes, exactly. Or I had breakfast and I ask, what did you eat for breakfast? So, and these are all written out very, very precisely because it's kind of an expansion on speech. In fact, as I was saying this, I remembered when I made those names. I didn't know how to come up with those names, how to identify those lessons. And there's many more. Like when you get into heavy conversation, then you have to really teach the child to identify facial expression and be able to, for instance, figure out cues as to the interest level. They have to be able to pick a topic that is specific to the people they're talking to. So, you can't go, I would not go to my children, for instance, and have a long conversation about autism, although I do at this point in life, but, I wouldn't when they were younger. And so those types of things are important, but they're more advanced. And the child is only 6, so at this point you're really looking at other children who are 6 and the type of interaction and conversation they have. They do identify what everyone wants to talk about. A 6-year-old will know what they can talk to their girlfriends about, what they can talk to the teacher about, that sort of thing. And so it starts to become pretty complex, and I recommend you look at skills. And skills, of course, is skillsforautism.com. You can write it out or use the number 4. Both of them go to the same place, skillsforautism.com. And I think that's really the place to go because you'll see hundreds of lessons that will work on conversational skills.
Yeah, it's kind of so exciting to read through it once, just to kind of read through what the different topics are, because you will go, oh, immediately. I know as a parent, you'll go, well, that's a part of what we don't have,
Right?
And want to fill in the blanks, and it's crazy good what can happen when we fill in those blanks with a child. Very exciting. So skillsforautism.com. And there's help and support if you need it. And you can always, I love to help people figure out skills because it's one of my favorite things on the planet.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
You went to school up in Washington, and then you spent some time working, and just recently you've returned back to the LA area.
Correct.
And what are you hoping to achieve back here in LA? What's the plan?
You know, at the moment I don't really know what the long-term plan is, but I'm really enjoying the work I'm doing as an administrative assistant for the contracts department, dealing with matters related to insurance. It really engages my mind.
Okay,
And
this I don't understand. Insurance is engaging?
yeah, it can be. I mean, just having to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, everybody's getting billed, has their authorizations. It's a complicated process, but I definitely like the challenge of it.
Like, what was your favorite class while you were at college?
So the way it works at Evergreen is that you have these multidisciplinary programs that usually make up a full-time load. My favorite program was one I took in my junior year called Writing American Cultures, which basically focused on aspirations and realities. I mean, one thing particularly focused on was the contrast between ideals and realities, or, you know, the challenge of what one thinks of themselves versus what others think of themselves. And it was reading books such as Invisible Man and Replaceable You that helped me to realize the consequences of letting others define us.
Yeah.
And that just allowed me to break free when I realized that, because I think for so long I think I succumbed to others' definitions of me, but I would not do that anymore, because you're going to end up believing that you're devoid of something rather than being something or somebody and discovering new hobbies and talents and skills.
And so now you feel like you are at a place where you fully accept yourself instead of looking for other people for validation?
I do.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm twice your age, and I don't think I'm there yet, Nick.
Well, thanks
So
for sharing.
that's pretty good that you're there at that young age. Everybody know what they want?
I do.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
How can I help you today?
Okay, Nick's gonna order first. Go
you.
for it.
I'd like to take a number 1, add grilled onions and pickles, animal-style fries, and a Coke, please.
What do you think the biggest struggle was when you were young?
I think the biggest struggle by far is obviously wanting to be accepted for who I am, who I was and who I am, and not be defined by a neurological condition because of the troubles of, you know, having...
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Maybe 1161.
Thank you. Sorry, we're talking about something really important.
Yeah.
Tubby
That's
didn't
fine.
even want a soda.
But anyway, you were asking me earlier what was like the most difficult
Yeah.
thing.
And you were talking
I think it was-
very eloquently.
I was talking about, you know, I found the biggest challenge by far is being accepted for who I was at a young age, because, you know, being diagnosed with autism at age 4.5 and then enter kindergarten while still struggling, and the fact that the Culver City Unified School District is small. You go to school with mostly the same people from kindergarten through 12th grade. So because of this was how I came across to and was remembered by a lot of my peers. So even after I had improved to a significant extent or recovered, I think I wasn't really seen as anything more than a neurological condition, and that just made it really hard for me to fit in socially.
And was it just the kids that you were going to school that made you feel like you didn't fit in, or was it everything?
It was really the kids, for the most part. Adults are a lot more kinder, although I can tell you I had one first grade teacher who once, I just don't think really understood what I was going through. And she actually one time told my parents that she didn't think I had any chance of succeeding. And hearing that just makes you like, wow. I mean, I feel sorry for her because she didn't understand, but still, when you are in a position where you're supposed to empower the lives of young individuals, you should never say anything like that. That's degrading.
So I got to ask you though, because we get a lot of mail from people who say that they feel like ABA in particular causes people to feel like how they are and who they are isn't enough, and that ABA is trying to change them. And one of the things people have said to us is, where are all the adults who had ABA? And why don't we see them? We hear parents talking about how great ABA is, but where are all the adults who had ABA?
Right.
So what do you think? Do you feel like ABA made you feel bad about who you are and changed who you were?
You know, there's definitely a period where after services ended for me, I didn't really want to have anything to do with CARD or any of that, because I just felt that it just made life difficult, especially when I'd have therapists shadow me at school, and they weren't really there to really interact with me too much, but I had an idea, and you can tell people under something is up when people are looking at you weird and they're like, what is up with Nick? And you're just trying to fit in as best as you can. But now I'm like, why try to fit in when you were born to stand out? I read that somewhere. But it wasn't really until the Recovered documentary came around, and then when I worked at the old headquarters for a couple summers, that I really, and my time in college, that I really started to look at this all in a different light. And, it's, if it weren't partly for that, if not entirely, I just wouldn't be where I am today.
Okay, so, and while we're talking about this, because you were featured in the movie Recovered, and that's a word that got used in conjunction with you, that you recovered from autism at what age?
Recovered at 10, even though my services didn't end until I was 14, gradually fading out.
Okay.
Time. It was felt that there were still some things that I needed to improve on.
So, do you use the word recovered? Do you say that about yourself? Do you say I recovered from autism?
I do, but the way I look at it as, I probably still have some, I'll admit, I'm not perfect. I probably still have some characteristics and traits and symptoms that are characteristic of autism. But what they say is that, you need to meet certain criteria in order to qualify for a diagnosis. So when you no longer meet the minimum criteria, then you would definitely be deemed recovered.
Right. And it's considered a diagnosis of a disorder.
Exactly.
Do you feel that you, at this point in your life, have a disorder?
Indeed, I sometimes, I think to a certain extent I still do have disabilities in some way, but I do not let them hold me back. I don't let it hold me back, and I don't let it define who I am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's eat.
Let's eat.
Any regrets?
No regrets. I've had moments in life where, maybe I could have said or done things differently, but, experience is experience. It makes you wise, and I guess sometimes you have to go make a few mistakes to find out who you really are.
Why? You're so wise for your age, Nick. Why do you think that is? Is that just you, or is that your parents, or is that what you've been through, or a combo platter? What do you think?
Fact is, all I can say is I just know what I know. It doesn't really get any clearer than that. It's nothing.
You're very passionate about things, and you feel things so deeply, and I know how much you care about people, and you remain centered. So what ticks you off? What makes all that go away? Do you ever get mad and lose it?
I very rarely lose my temper, but definitely, let's say, there's some pet peeves that just drive me crazy, and sometimes I can be very sensitive, so if somebody just says something that makes me feel that way, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I have a hard time with accepting feedback or being told things I don't necessarily like to hear, especially from my folks, but I try my best to respond as opposed to overreacting. Because you ultimately have to realize that nobody's against you.
I want to crochet that on a pillow. There are people who need to have that said to them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Nobody's against you here. I'm probably one of them.
Well, thanks again for this. Made my day.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for going with us.
My pleasure.
Is there anything that you wish people knew about you?
You know, this is certainly what I would like to be remembered for when I die. I just wish everybody would always know that no matter what, I always try to be and do the best I could be and do every day. And that's all that really matters.
Absolutely.
Pirate.
Penguin? Is he gonna come out of the egg?
Eggs?
Egg.
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 Egg. Can you say g? Say egg. Egg. You're trying. Miss Jessica's here. Yay!
be a fun day.
Yay! Hi, Miss Jessica.
Jessica.
What's this? Baby? Baby? Who's this? Is this a mommy? Yeah? Who else is in here? Is this a daddy? Daddy? That's a daddy? Daddy. And a mommy. And a what? And a what? Say, and a baby. Does the baby go in here? Say, sit down. Say, sit down. Yeah, you gonna go inside? Whoa! Woo, you gonna fly in the sky? There, let's go. Up the stairs. Let's go sit down. Yeah, sit down. Ooh. Okay, take off. Bye. See you later. Right now we're working on functional pretend play, which involves having him play with toys appropriately. For instance, having an airplane and putting the people in the airplane and flying it appropriately, so that when he does go to preschool, because other kids are doing imaginative play too, creative play, so he would be able to play with the other kids as well, appropriately and functionally. So right now it's just a lot of imitation, but once you just model for him a couple times, he can play with it, no problem. So with the functional pretend play program, with the kitchen set and everything, it's really good for him, because since he has so many issues with feeding, he can play with the spoons, the forks, and not worry about having to actually feed himself anything. He can pretend to feed himself, feed me, feed the baby. There isn't an outcome where he has to eat anything at all. Look, go. You tried. Nice job. Very good. So yeah, so having and handling fake food isn't a problem, but when it comes to actually seeing real food, he can totally tell the difference, and he sometimes just refuses, or most of the time just doesn't even touch it. Versus all these things, he has no problem. Cut. Good job. You want to peel the orange? What is this? Say orange. Here, peel it. There you go. Nice job. His mom has been having children shoot themselves, like brushing their teeth, jumping, and the other day she showed me one where the kids were jumping, and he was watching it, and after that he was actually jumping and imitating them too, and he actually got air, which we've been working on for a couple weeks already. When he sees the kids actually talking to him, he wants to do it even more.
So these are made by friends of yours?
Yeah, they posted them onto his website called Watch Me, Jack Riley.
And who came up with that idea?
That was my idea because he likes to watch kids on TV. And he thinks it's all very funny. But we need to get them eating. I think that will help him tremendously. Do you want to watch the kids jump now? They're talking to you! jump. Bye, Jack Riley. Do you want to watch the ABCs or do you want to watch jumping again? ABCs or jumping? Jumping. You made that clear. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P.
It's a combination of some of those letters.
P, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X,
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 Y.
Z. Yay! Do you want to make your sounds?
Who's that? Yeah. And who's that over there? No, who's that over there?
Daddy.
Yeah, that's Daddy. How about over there? Who's that?
Jessica, I don't know my name. It's too hard.
Yes?
Jessica. Yeah, but the hard ones are the ones he breaks out without problem.
Yeah, yellow.
We were playing with
Yellow
the
came out
Yellow
of
and
nowhere.
Riley.
Yellow and Riley, yeah,
We were
Jack.
playing with the dolls, and I named the baby, the mommy and the daddy, and he said Bommy.
Yeah, I think I'm getting the M now.
It's
the
getting
X, yeah.
it's getting closer.
I have him say milk in the morning,
Not to start
and
over,
now
Hannah.
I'm just starting with instead of, because if I say milk, he'll say ba.
Oh.
So if I say milk, he'll say ba.
Ba.
How old are you?
Daddy.
Daddy. Yeah.
Bye.
How old are you?
Ho
How old?
Two.
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 What's your name? What's your name? Can you say Jack?
Riley.
Jack Riley.
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 That's clear.
Riley.
Can you say
Riley.
Jack Riley?
Tell Riley.
Yay!
Very good. How old are
job.
you? How old are you?
How old are you?
Four.
How old are you, Jack? Hey. Jack.
He likes looking at you guys through this so much.
How old are you?
Are you two?
Are you 468? No. How old is Jack? How old is Jack? Say, I'm 2.
I two.
Yay! Good job.
I'm two. I'm two also.
Is Daddy 2?
I'm too many.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it, like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, half a cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that I got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot half cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table, just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just gonna pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's gonna take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. So let's wait a little bit and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just gonna pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, oh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. And for those of you who've been watching, I introduced this morning, and then we showed a clip, an old clip of Ask Dr. Doreen, but we are back live.
Okay.
I promised them that we would be, and we're here, and we're
great.
thrilled. Nancy had a birthday since we were last here, so a little bit later on in the show, we're going to celebrate that a little bit more.
Oh, no, please.
Oh, yes, we are. We're not going to light anything on fire.
Okay, all
right.
But you're so great about these things.
Stop,
you always
I'm not.
Remember everything.
But
it's also our friend. Just a shout out to Susan Campbell Cross, who
it's her birthday today.
Who does sometimes comes on and does lifestyle tips for us for busy families. So
yes, happy birthday to Susan
you,
Campbell
Susan.
Cross.
Big
but
Act Today
happy
supporter.
birthday to you.
Thank you, darling.
And I know people have been writing in, and you can write in your birthday messages to Miss Nancy.
Thank you.
And want to remind all of you, because we didn't say at the start of the show, that this show is meant to be interactive. So if you're tuning in and you want to write into us, you can do that in many different ways, but on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. It's the live feature, and you can do that. We've got a big show, bigger even than I had known or planned, coming up for you, but we've got a lot of news to start with.
Yeah, we do. We do. Why don't we start with good news?
Okay, let's start with the best news. Great story here in Los Angeles that's been out the last couple of days, and it's been being picked up by a lot of different news services, and we're really glad. A little 6-year-old boy that's here in Los Angeles who's on the autism spectrum, and his favorite hobby is reading to dogs. How much do we love this? It is absolutely precious beyond belief.
Yeah, he started reading to the dogs after his mother, his aunt, brought him to the Gardena, I think, California. Yeah, Carson Animal Shelter in Gardena, California, here in Southern California. And that's where his aunt and her daughter volunteered. And they discovered that this really soothed him. And his name is Jacob. And he always had a lot of problems with noise, as so many of our children do. And what they found was that when he tuned into the pups and the dogs, it kind of allowed him to establish that connection and tune everything else out.
And it's, I've seen, there's a video that you guys can watch. It's absolutely precious. He takes this little mat with him, and he's got his book, and he goes over and he sets his mat directly in front of the cage. And he particularly reads to the pit bulls. There's one pit bull that he's made such a connection with. I really, I don't know that he can't have a dog, but I want to send that pit bull home with him. I want to know that can happen. Because you see the pit bull who's like anxious and barking and whatever, and the little boy comes and he sits and reads to him, and that pit bull sits and listens. It's crazy.
Well, they want to recruit additional rescue readers. They have a name for this. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So, and you don't have to live in Carson to want to do that. If you want to take your kids and have them read to the dogs, look, it can't hurt, right?
No, it can't. Or read to your own dog.
Absolutely. At the LA Book Fair, they have a booth where you can go and read to a dog.
Oh, really?
And so Jem got to do that early on. I was like, we're reading to the dogs? But the truth of the matter is the kids love that, and the dogs will sit and attend. So in any case, I don't know if you saw, new study is out, and there are a whole lot of people questioning it, whether or not circumcision could play a role in autism. That for so long we've been looking at all right, there's so many more boys than girls,
That
so
are
what's the
circumcised,
difference?
and you know, obviously the rates of autism are so much higher in boys.
Right, and so there is a Danish epidemiologist who has put out a study, Dr. Morten Frisch, that is in the Journal of Royal Society of Medicine, suggesting that boys who are circumcised are more likely to be diagnosed by the age of 9. And he said, considering the widespread practice of non-therapeutic circumcision in infancy and childhood around the world, the study states confirmatory studies should be given priority. But there are critics to this study. That's one in particular, Professor Emeritus Brian Morris of the University of Sydney says the problem with Frisch's fundamental premise is that circumcision causes pain in infants and boys. Sometimes observers, this is the guy who's criticizing, he says sometimes observers believe that crying during a circumcision is because of pain, when in fact it is more likely because of the baby having to be restrained. Now, you know, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but when people say, oh, babies don't feel pain, I just want to smack them with a brick, right?
I mean, I can't even believe people would make a statement like that. I mean, it's a living organism, a baby.
Right, and they
of
go,
course
oh,
it
there's
feels
not that
pain.
many
Right.
nerve endings.
Not that many nerve endings.
I just
Now,
don't believe that at all.
I was just curious how this study came to be, and I imagine because of a statement in the article that indeed some studies do suggest that any pain early in life can have lasting effects on brain development. So I'm thinking they must have thought, okay, if pain in early life can have effect on brain development, what's one of the greatest things that causes pain? Circumcision.
Right.
And that must have been, because I'm thinking, well, just because boys are circumcised, did they decide that because there's more autism in boys, there might be a link with circumcision?
Exactly. They literally looked at it and said, what are the differences between girls and boys?
Right.
What could this possibly, you know, is it just hormones or could it be something else?
How can we tease
Now,
that out into some other causes?
You know, not to put a certain person's business out onto the streets, but when I was faced with this decision, I said, oh no, we're not doing that. And yet my child in the 2 days after birth was very shut down. He didn't want a nurse, he didn't want to do anything, and there was a nurse who came in to try to help us to figure out what I was doing wrong in the breastfeeding department, and she took him and she said, well, this baby wants to sleep. This baby is just not awake. Let's wake him up. And then she was like, I don't know what's going on. He just doesn't want to wake up. He was very, very sleepy. And she said, and she kind of thrust him back at me and she goes, it's because you had him circumcised. And I said, I beg your pardon, I did not. That did not happen. And she was like, yes, you did, and that's why he's so sleepy. And I said, check the diaper. That did not happen. But they gave me drugs and gave him drugs when he was being born. And so I attributed his sleepy, because in a couple of days he woke back up. But he was very sleepy the first couple of days. But she was like, oh, you mothers who have your children circumcised.
Oh, she was
and he's
one of
shut
those
down.
judgmental people.
Yes. But I hadn't. And then she was like, oh, well, then I don't know why he's so sleepy. Well, you know, dig back into your judgmental bag of tricks. But I thought it was interesting. She was the head nurse and she was like, oh, you women who have your babies circumcised. And this is what happens. They shut down afterwards. And I remember her saying that. So I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I chose not to do that.
She probably believes this link then, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. Well, but I believe that children who are circumcised feel the pain. I believe that their tears are from that. And this doctor who doesn't, I have a brick for him.
Yeah.
So there we have that.
Okay. Moving on. This in Ontario, Canada.
Oh yes, this kills me. You're laughing at
well,
me.
tell us what.
Okay,
what
so
the story
in
is.
Canada, they had a study that the Canadian government paid for, and a gentleman by the name of Ian Daw was the chair. He was the expert on the committee. They did a study, and the study came out with a report that it made several recommendations, but it said in it that early intensive behavioral intervention needed to be provided for children between the ages of 2 and 4, because that was important. That's what the statement said. And so, and we know studies show that that's important to
The
have.
earlier the better, of
So
course.
what the Canadian government did was say, oh, okay, so we're just going to give it to people between the ages of 2 and 4. So everybody who's 5, you're not getting any services. And if you were on the waiting list for the last 2 years to
were
get the
removed.
services, thank you, goodbye, time's up, we didn't have it for you. No, you don't get any services. The parents are up in arms, and even the author of the study has come forward very cautiously to say, look, I stand by what I said, but it's purely a matter of logic. Just because I said that it's imperative that they have services between the ages of 2 and 4 doesn't mean you should cut off people at 5 and go, you don't get any. And he has said that there is no evidence to suggest that it wouldn't help a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's just that those studies are not there. But the Canadian government has said, well, we have too many people on the waiting list, and this is going to free up the waiting list. We have another brick for that.
Yeah, 835 children who were older than 4 have been removed from the IBI wait list.
They've been waiting for 2 years, some of them, and for their place in the line. And now that they're 4 and it's their place in the line, it's going to go to the 2-year-olds. And we want those 2-year-olds to have it, but that doesn't mean that those 4-year-olds should. It's criminal.
I can't even imagine the outrage of these parents that they were taken off the list. Now, there is a party, the Progressive Conservatives, urged the government to reverse the decision
And
to
the
take
parents
the kids
are
off the
protesting,
list.
saying
Yes,
this is
and
ridiculous.
let's hope that protest.
This is one of those things where I just wish we had lots of time and lots of money, because you and I would go to Canada and lay down in front of a building with these people. It's horrifying.
That's right.
Horrifying.
I'll be right
but
there
ask
with
me
you.
how I really feel, because I'm not sure. I'm in that kind of mood today, Nancy. It's that kind of news story.
I can tell you're on
fire.
fire.
So Steve Silberman, who is author of Neurotribes, which we've talked about on the show extensively, has written a really, I think, important article for people to read. It's in undark.org, and it's called The Invisibility of Black Autism. And he's really taking some shots at how the system has, for more than 100 years, neglected to even look at individuals who are African American and to evaluate whether they have autism. That because he kind of pins it on Kanner and says Kanner, to start with, said that this was a disorder that happened to white children of very highly educated people
that had a hard time bonding with their children.
Well, this is going to be interesting as these studies come out about the CDC whistleblower saying that the prevalence for African Americans is higher after having the MMR, and we're hearing that there's a statement about to come out saying, oh, but it doesn't have to do with the MMR, it has to do with their socioeconomic status.
Which is causing some, it hasn't actually come out yet, that statement.
No, but they're saying it's coming.
It's coming, and by William Thompson,
yes,
the whistleblower, and that has caused some initial outrage because, gee, there are a lot of African American families out there with kids with autism that are of very high socioeconomic status that would say, I beg to differ.
Right. Well, and I love this article. It's very well written. Steve Silberman's a very good writer.
Yes, he comes up with a really interesting, you really need to go and look it up. It's on undark.org, and he talks about an early example with Mark Twain in a railroad car being exposed to a very large African American man who clearly had autism.
Yes.
And described the symptoms just to the T. So.
And it's absolutely, and the person that he met, it was Thomas Wiggins, who, if you're a student of Black theater history, you'll know that name. He was known as Blind Tom. He was one of the first people who performed at the White House that was not a white individual.
Right.
And he had a whole host of symptoms that we would now absolutely look at that and go, okay, this is autism. But he was a wonderful musician, and he made sounds with his mouth, and he was considered, a great spectacle to hear him perform.
And Twain met him on that train ride.
Yeah, but we're talking, this is in the 1860s,
Yeah.
and yet nobody talked about, autism hadn't been defined by that point. But if we can look back and go, okay, so here was a person who was African American in the 1860s, clearly had the symptoms. And still today, he then ends the article talking about having been on a mode of transportation to bookend this with starting the transportation, ending the he was on transportation with a woman who was African American, a policy expert. And she said to him as they're traveling, so what is it you do? And he said, oh, I have this book out that's on the bestseller list that's about autism. And she said, isn't that like a white person thing? A policy expert. Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it. Check it out, undark.org. Okay, that's our news for today. We've got great guests.
We do. We have moms and sons.
Moms and sons, 2 sets of them today. We're very excited about that.
Autism Family Portrait. We have Chantal. Now, I always botch her name.
I do too. I said this earlier, but I think it's Sicile-Kira.
Sicile-Kira and her son, Jeremy Sicile-Kira. And they are just, this woman has accomplished so much. She's written 5 books. She's an advocate and leader in the field of autism. And Jeremy also, on his own,
talented artist.
Very talented
artist.
And I'm reading all of these things he's done. Youth leader for the Autistic Global Initiative, ARI's youth representative at the United Nations. It's so many things that Jeremy's
And the 2 of them together have co-authored the book A Full Life with Autism, which is a must-read. And they're going to be with us via Skype in just a minute. And a little bit later on the show, we have Lizette Duarte and her son Eduardo are going to be with us. And so more about that coming up. But first, these messages, and then we'll be back.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman with Taka. My
Hi.
guest here.
I am Jennifer Lucero with Taka.
Taka Mom is here in the house. Jeff saw on a TV commercial, they were making calzones, and he looked at me and goes, Mom, please make me that. Wait a minute, yeah, calzone, you can't have calzone. He goes, well, you make me pizza. Why don't we call it a puzzone? So we're going to do this ode to Jeff, puzzone. So I'm going to have Jen come on in.
All right.
You're on charge.
Ready.
We're going to add a little grapeseed oil, garlic, cut up chicken, finely cut up onion, and we're going to throw a little bit of basil. So we're going to just take about 5 minutes or so, saute up the chicken and all of the onions together. While Jen is slaving away at the stove, I'm going to make the pizza crust. A lot of gluten-free choices that you have out there for pizza crust. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the dry. Again, I'm using eggs. There are a lot of egg replacers on the Taka website. We have about a dozen different ways to replace eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and add my shortening. Calls for a little extra salt, which I'm going to put in here. And also add a little pepper. And we also have herbs de Provence that gives the crust a nice Italian flavor. Can't forget the apple cider vinegar, organic stuff, ready to go. Yes, I have all my ingredients. We're ready to rock with this mixer. And don't be afraid of dough. Dough doesn't bite. So here's what we'll be working with to make the puzzone. I'm ready to go. Let's get this party started. So what we're going to do next is roll out the dough. I like to be rolling in the dough, but we're going to roll out the dough instead. So let's go ahead and get started here with that. So again, you see me using the parchment paper all the time. Love this stuff. It's basically unbleached, ready to go. It's just going to make life a lot easier on your rolling pin. You don't need to coat it or anything, which is a lot easier. But I swear I should buy that by the gross ton. So the puzzones, this basically makes 2 big puzzones. I'm going to take half of the dough and roll it out. Half of the other dough will be for the other puzzone that we're going to make in just a little bit. So you want to do, you're not making a pie crust, you're kind of making a long oval shape. So we're going to try to make a shape where I'm going to basically roll this over with all the yummy fillings. And so any combination or variation thereof. This sauce, just real simple, is organic crushed tomatoes. I've added a little bit of salt and pepper and herbes de Provence in that as well, which I love. I like extra fresh basil. That's always yummy to have on your puzzone. And thank you, this turned out fantastic. So we're just basically building it the way that we want to eat it. Of course, my favorite rice-free, organic, dairy-free, soy-free cheese. It's going to pop out the sides.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of popping out the sides. So that's the beauty of the parchment paper. Once you're done, you just flip it over and peel it back. So I'm just taking a fork now and going around the edges. It looks so pretty.
It looks really nice.
So for 400 degrees, we're going to go for about 25 minutes. You want it golden brown. And because we cooked everything pretty much already, you're not worried about not having everything fully cooked. So look how cute those look.
Looks great.
Like those 4 happy people right there. This weighs a ton. So let's go to the magic oven. Pull out our finished product. And voila!
Good.
Oh my gosh,
looks
this
beautiful.
is so yummy. There's nothing better than a little Jeff Ackerman puzzone. And this is going to be nuclear hot, but we'll go ahead and cut it open so you can. Oh my gosh, this is going to taste so good
That
later
looks
on for
great.
your kids.
Yum.
Feedback, keep it coming. Thank you for helping, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. Come back to Autism Live. We'll keep doing allergy-friendly cooking classes. If you have any suggestions or things that you would like to see us make, bring it on. You can reach us at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook.
Love the Facebook.
I know, too much for me. Facebook, so facebook.com/autismlive, or thousands of taco recipes ready to go. Basically go to Takanow, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Our twins, Justin and Jessica, were premature babies, so we always were very conscientious of their development. But I think it was probably 15 months, Justin started getting really obsessive compulsive with opening and closing doors. And Justin started tantruming a lot too. These would be major tantrums that were just completely debilitating to the family.
Having to take them out of the house, put them in the car, drive around, just to calm them down.
I remember a breaking point and just thinking, you know what, we got to do something. This is not right. Once we were on the track to getting a diagnosis for autism, we started sharing that with our close friends and family. It just so happens that somebody from our older daughter's private school called us out of the blue. She introduced herself and she says, I know that recovery is possible. Those words so early in our journey were a guiding force for us. As we got more educated in knowing what is effective therapies for kids with autism, we realized quality ABA is vital to that progress. That's where we decided that CARD was the right provider for us and for our son. Justin responded very well to therapy. The behaviors were tracked, and we saw that what was being instituted was working.
Justin, what are you doing?
Coloring.
You are coloring. Good for you.
There was real progress, and there was progress that was tangible.
I just remember when he made a sentence, he said a sentence. We were just happy about it, going, no way, I can't believe you just did that.
What's the date?
The 18th.
18th of what month?
December.
Oh, what year is it?
2007.
Oh, okay, so how old are you today then?
5.
The therapies that CARD did for Justin didn't just impact his daily living skills, but it was a positive impact on our entire family.
I'm
Justin. I am in 4th grade. I like playing video games sometimes. My dream to build a teleporter machine. Like sometimes if like we're on an airplane and it's like really long, you guys just say, oh, hurry up with that teleporter machine, we're waiting on you. And I just started Friday Night Lights. This is our 3rd game of the season, and it's pretty fun. You have to be fast.
We attribute so much of Justin's recovery to CARD. Their goal was the same as our goal. We wanted Justin recovered. June 12, 2008 is a day that I celebrate every year because that is the day that Justin was deemed recovered from autism. And Dr. Doreen Grandpichet met with us, looked at him and just said, he's brilliant. You need to keep his mind stimulated because he's very smart and he has no residual traits of autism.
Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite 4-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, and that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. You know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Welcome back. We're so thrilled that Nancy and I, for the first time on the show, we have a guest that we've wanted to have on for a long time.
A very long time.
Chantel, Sicile-Kira. All right.
Did we get that right, Chantel?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
On
well,
the 13th try.
We spoke a little bit about you at the top of the show, that you are really a pioneer in this field of autism, as a parent, as an advocate. You're the award-winning author of 5 books. You've got 25 years experience as a parent and a professional, and you're known for your practical advice on autism. You're an international speaker, and one of your keynote is Love, Sex, God, and Autism, which I would love to hear sometime. Your area of expertise includes the effects of autism on family, adolescence, and transition to adulthood. You had actual practical experience, Chantel, with teaching functional living skills to severely developmentally disabled adolescents in preparation for their deinstitutionalization. That's a whole show in and of itself.
Yes.
And you have raised your own autistic and nonverbal son, Jeremy, in France, the UK, and the US. And welcome to the show, Chantal. And we're going to get into Jeremy in a minute.
For having me. I appreciate it.
We refer to, you know, there are some moms that we refer to as being the autism super moms, that they're the ones that probably have capes somewhere hidden away in a drawer, and you're one of those moms that we think of that way. You're very well known in the autism community. So it's a thrill and a delight to have you here with us. And as you were saying, Jeremy is your son, and he was going to be with us, but unfortunately he was unable to be with us today.
A little under weather.
But yes, he is a brilliant artist.
His art is so fantastic.
And so, again, thrilled that you're here. First time being with us. So should we start talking about, you have 2 children, is that correct?
That's correct. So Jeremy's the oldest at 27, and Rebecca, my daughter, who's neurotypical, is 24, and she lives in Seattle.
Wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about Jeremy and when he was diagnosed and sort of the early years.
So, you know, I had worked at a state hospital that you referred to introducing me when I lived in California. And I was also a case manager at a regional center of Orange County. And then I moved to Europe, and because my family's French and I wanted to get to know my relatives, and I ended up staying there a lot longer than I expected. And I had both my children over there. And I had recognized early on that Jeremy was not developing properly. But at that time, autism was considered a mental illness in France. And so I really couldn't get much help for him. And it took a really long time to get a diagnosis and to get help. Because at the time, they only offered psychoanalysis. And unless you followed psychoanalysis with your child, you were not allowed to receive the other services of OT or speech. And he had no right to an education, which is why we subsequently left France.
And what year was that when he was diagnosed, Chantel?
So he was born in 1989. He was diagnosed in 91. Rebecca was born in 92. In 93, we moved to the UK, and in 96, we moved here to San Diego.
Because in a lot of ways, that's like the dark ages of autism.
Yes.
You know, there weren't a lot of services anywhere, but certainly in France, which is still behind, I can't even imagine.
Yes. So in France, they did change the law, so now autism is considered a developmental disability, so they have a right to an education, so the law has changed. But just like when we first changed the laws here, it takes a while for them to come into effect, so many students are still having problems accessing an education, and they're still doing treatments in the hospitals that you don't even want to hear about.
In Europe, right?
And a lot of it has to do with money, because if the psychoanalyst and the medical ministry are in charge of autism, they have all those monies. And so if they then go in the educational system, they have to transfer all that money and power. So a lot of it, I think, has to do with that.
Well, we've done some shows about the state of things in France. It's horrifying.
Yeah. And I can't imagine, though, the obstacles you faced in 3 different countries when Jeremy was young, and how you eventually got through on all of this.
And there wasn't even the internet as a presence back then. So what did you do?
Well, already I had my a little bit of training from when I had lived in the States, even though I had worked with adults and not with young children with autism. But I just knew that my idea was I wasn't expecting my son to become neurotypical or to become, you know, a high school graduate. I just wanted him, I just thought everyone can reach their potential and everyone can learn something. And so that was my, what kept me going. And I think actually the way that I was raised by my parents, who were French immigrants to the States, who had 6 kids and no family around, and then, you know, and they moved around, and so we were always the foreigners wherever we went. That kind of instilled in me maybe resilience that some people don't have. But when I think about it, which is why I did put on that show, Love, Sex, God, and Autism, which is now it's a keynote that I do at different places. It really talks about, you know, how I got Jeremy where he is today. But, you know, because I started thinking when I was speaking around the country at all these conferences with my practical talks, why is it that some families seem to be doing okay and strong despite the challenges, and then other people just seem totally depressed, wiped out? Because it isn't easy. It's true. It's not easy. And maybe I make it look too easy. But the point is that everyone accepts or deals with the situation in a different way. And so, you know, even now in adult services, it's not easy, but you kind of try and figure things out, and you have to decide what things you're going to worry about and what things you're going to let go of. And the things that are really important, then you're going to go ahead and do yourself. Well, you know, like with the whole job thing for Jeremy.
Yes, let's talk about some of the things that you were able to accomplish with Jeremy that has, you know, been the reason why he is such a high-functioning member of the community today, despite that he is nonverbal, correct?
Right. So Jeremy, really, his autism is really a lot of motor and sensory challenges. And so he could say with ABA, he learns like 100 words, and he could talk, but if you asked him receptively to give you the right item that he obviously knew because he could say the word, he wouldn't give it to you. And it turned out that he had vision processing challenges as well. So over the years, I just realized that he did understand things because he was making connections, but not, you know, he couldn't always show that to us. And when I was doing the research for my first book, Autism Spectrum Disorder, I met Soma, the mother of Tito, who was doing the rapid prompting method. And so I thought that looked like something that could work with my son. So I tried that with him. I brought him up to LA twice a month for a year and a half, and I would do 20 minutes a day at home. And I had run my own home program in the UK, 40 hours a week, doing 10 of them myself, with supervision from Lovas Center up in Scandinavia that was connected with the Lovas Center here in LA. And it helped a little bit, but, you know, still Jeremy wasn't one of the ones that really, you know, benefited a lot from it. But with the RPM, over time, you could see that he was making the connections. And it, you know, it wasn't a miracle. It was a lot of long time work. And then I had given up on having the school do it because already I was just trying to get him home without rug burns on him from school. You know, I had kind of filed due process a few times because of things like that. And but this one teacher came to do a home visit. She was new, and Jeremy was new to the school, the first year of high school. And I showed her things around the house. And then I said, oh, he likes to do this. And I showed the basic steps of RPM, because I thought if she's really interested, she could try these basic steps with Jeremy. And if she has a positive response, she might be intrigued to do more. I didn't show her what level he was actually at that point. And she tried. She thought, you know, she was getting responses, and she wanted me to come in and train, so we did. I trained the staff that were working with Jeremy and her, and they started getting Jeremy to the point where they could do assessments with him and realize that all the classes he had been sitting in, that I had insisted on mainstreaming 2 classes a semester when he was in middle school, that he had been listening and learning, because every class that he had sat in, he passed the assessments at a normal grade level, and all the classes that he had never been given access to, you know, we'd never taught him, of course he failed. So we immediately understood that he was an auditory learner, and the school, it was never my idea to go for a high school diploma. It was the school that realized Jeremy's potential, and then he kept saying, I want to learn, I want to learn, I want to learn. And so they put him on the academic track, and then, but only 2 classes a semester because I insisted on the functional skills and the work skills as well. And so he graduated at age 21 with a full academic diploma.
And not only that, he spoke at his graduation, something that was covered extensively in the news and was so inspirational to so many people.
Yes, he auditioned. He auditioned because they asked all the seniors at the school to audition if they wanted to give a talk, and he said he wanted to. And this is before iPads. So it was with his little notebook computer, which were much more complicated than they are now. And he gave that speech. And then, you know, we always still wondered, what is he going to do? And we had started some self-employment initiatives at school because the workability person said that my son was not community ready, despite the fact that he had lived in 3 major countries and had been going shopping and to the library and out there ever since he was a little guy. So I just said, well, you know, I think he can do something, and so did the teacher. So we started some little self-initiative projects. What I just found out recently are still in effect today at the local high school.
Wow.
That's
So
such
really
a great accomplishment. And Jeremy also co-authored a book about the transition into adulthood, we should say, called A Full Life with Autism, that was put out by Macmillan in 2012.
Well, this one's got I don't know if you can see it. It's got all my tags in it.
Okay.
But it's about the transition to adulthood. And I just want to tell people, I make practically no money on these books. I make like 50 cents for every copy.
We understand.
But everyone is so upset with the high school years and transition years that I get these phone calls and these emails and people are all depressed, and I understand. But if you just read, take it out from the library, read some of this, it will give you an idea of what you need to be doing in school. And you know what, if the educators don't know, you can, if you have a good connection with them, you can give them some information, because a lot of them don't realize how there is nothing after high school and transition program. But if they're, and the other thing is work. Everyone complains about the work situation, and it is really bad. But I think that as parents, we have to realize that if we want them to be doing something other than wiping the table and sweeping the floor, we need to go out and make those connections in our community with our friends. If we have a small business, we have to hire people. We have to kind of lead the way in that area too. It's, you know, of course the schools have to do stuff, and they should. But I wasn't about to just, you know, get back and depressed, thinking, oh, my son's never going to amount to anything. Oh, my son's never going to amount to anything. If I had listened to that, my son would not have amounted to anything. And then 3 years ago, we discovered that he was painting portraits in his dreams. And that this is the thing that Jeremy was 24. So if you think, like I also thought, what is my son going to do? I have no clue. He doesn't have a special skill or a special talent. Well, you never know when it's going to pop up. And anyway, meanwhile, they can always be doing something.
But he does have this special talent, and you have a painting there that you can hold up to show the people at home.
So here.
Look at how beautiful.
How beautiful. His artwork is just magnificent. And you said this didn't surface until what age, Chantal?
3 years ago at age 24. And what happened is we found out he had synesthesia. And synesthesia is when you have wiring in your brain that's different for your senses. And so a lot of famous musicians have it, and when they play or hear music, they see colors.
Right.
And some people see letters and numbers and words in color. And Jeremy did, but I didn't know it. And it's because he was carrying around this book, Born on a Blue Day. Have you heard of that book?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and it's about this man who has synesthesia. So Jeremy was carrying around this book, and I said, oh, this is about so-and-so, and he has synesthesia. He sees letters and numbers and words like our friend Beth does. And Jeremy spelled out on his letterboard, doesn't everyone? And I said, no, do you? He said, yes. I went, oh my gosh. So I started asking him what the colors were of everything. And then his therapist said to me 3 weeks later, oh, your son sees colors around people. He sees their auras. And I said, I'm from Staten Island. I don't do auras. Thank you very much. So I don't care whether you call it auras or synesthesia, but Jeremy has explained to me that he does read people's emotions as color. And so then about 3 months after that, he woke up with a big smile and he started telling me that he was having dreams at night that he was painting paintings. And he would say something like, oh, Mom, I dreamt I painted the colors of Donna. They were very yellow and bright like her personality. I was like, okay. And every day they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, these dreams. And one day, about 3 weeks later, he said, Mom, I had a dream that I painted 10 of my paintings and I had my own art show. Could this come true? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you what I tell everyone who says, I have a great idea for a book. Could I get it published? Did you write the darn thing yet? So I said, you have to start painting.
Yeah.
So we started painting, you know, with just stuff we had in the house. And then some people around just said, oh, he has great placement. Oh, he is really good with the color. And he just started doing it more and more. And then people started asking him, you know, friends to start painting. And I organized his first art show. It just happened 3 weeks ago.
Really impressive.
And at this art show, a curator stepped up 2 months before and said, oh, I've seen your son's stuff online. I think I'd love to curate his show. He's really a true artist. It's not just about the dreams. In fact, she didn't even want the dreams up with the paintings. And then this PR company had heard about Jeremy, and he had done some things for people because he's often giving these paintings away to people to make them feel better. And they said, oh, we'd love to help you get the word out. Getting the word out means Jeremy ended up on people.com, on national ABC, NBC. The place was packed. We sold everything except one painting. And not only that, he had like 30 commissions that came in, and they're still coming in.
Look at that.
And the important thing is that some people are in it because of their auras and their spirituality, and they think these are, you know, that Jeremy's giving them their colors, which is great. And then other people are real art collectors. Excuse me. There are 2 people down here that I delivered paintings to who bought 5x5 paintings that Jeremy had painted for the show, and they're hanging next to Miro's. Jeremy's paintings are hanging near Miro's in people's homes. That's the caliber of his art.
So Chantel, where can people go if they want to see more of his art and find out more?
Jeremy'sVision.com.
Jeremy'sVision.com. And
without the apostrophe, just Jeremy'sVision.
Fabulous. And we're running out of time, so I want to shift a little bit to you, because clearly you're one of those can-do people. If there's an obstacle in your way, you decide how you're going to get over it, under it, around it. It's not going to stop you. And I think that, you know, people want to know more about you, and so where can we go to find your books and find out more about, and I also want you to talk a little bit about Autism College.
Okay, so yes, my website is autismcollege.com, and my books are there, and I also have blogs on there. So there's a lot of information on that website. I also, in fact, I just wrote a blog post today on Psychology Today. So sometimes I don't have time to write on Autism College, but I write on Psychology Today. I also have a Huffington Post column, but I haven't written that in a while. But autismcollege.com has a lot of information. And in the past, I used to do online trainings there on adolescence and on the transition to adulthood. I haven't done any in the last year and a half, but I will be doing some soon because I've been getting so many requests. I just had run out of time. But I think that I found a partner to help me with the technological aspects, so I don't have to worry anymore about actually doing it. You know how it is when you work on your own? It's hard because you have to do all the pieces. I'm not a big company, but I did find someone to partner with, and so they'll be handling all the technological aspects, and I'll be able to just do the content.
Great. Well, Chantel, you do a lot. I gotta say, like, I'm tired thinking about it, and I'm thinking to myself, how does she have time to do all this? So I appreciate the fact that you admitted that there are things you don't have time to do.
Yeah, I do too, because we all suffer, I think, sometimes as autism moms of, you know, feeling like the clock is ticking and we're not doing enough.
Well, you know, it's funny because I feel bad when I get an email that I can't answer. Yes. So I feel like if I could at least get the videos up there that people could access, because people are less into reading and it's easier sometimes with the video, then I wouldn't feel so bad. So that's why I'm thinking about that. But you're right, I haven't done any in a year and a half, and I don't feel bad about it, really.
Good.
But I do feel bad about people who don't have access to inexpensive information that can help them, that's practical.
Right. Well, you do that, we do that, we all do that.
Yes,
hopefully they can find information.
And we'll send them your way. And I know I'm going to check all these things out because Wyatt's 14 and making the transition to high school, and adjusting to that, and Wyatt is an artist as well. So hopefully he'll be following in Jeremy's footsteps and having success with his art.
It's all about the marketing, guys.
Love that.
Yeah, okay,
Love
great.
that.
All right. So.
Well, you're amazing. We thank you so much. We hope that Jeremy feels better and that you
Yes.
guys will come back again sometime
Thank
with
you.
both of you. And if you ever want in the LA area, you want to come and be in the studio, we'd love to have you.
That sounds great. Thank you for all that you do, because this is really wonderful that people can access this from their homes.
Well, we
Thank you,
likewise,
Chantal.
we
Have a
appreciate
great,
you.
great day.
Give
Give
our
our best to
best.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Take care. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Okay, bye-bye. And so we're going to take a short break. I'm evaluating. We don't have enough time we're going to keep Lisette and her son for tomorrow, because that was what our original plan was. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and celebrate Nancy's birthday, and then we'll have Lisette for tomorrow. Yes. So stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. My beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
I can't believe you pulled this on me.
Of course I was going to pull this on you. It's a cake. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
But it's a cake that says Happy Birthday, Nancy. It has a 1 candle on it for many reasons.
Okay.
Because past a certain birthday, we don't celebrate the first number. We only celebrate the second number. And so this is a 1 for you.
All right.
And it's a 1 in a lot of other ways, too. There are different things in your life that mark different times when you move from one phase to another.
Yes.
And so this is a 1. And a 1 in all of the good senses of a 1, that things are new and things are different, and sometimes they're scary and they're difficult, and learning how to walk again and learning how to get through the day again. So this is a 1. But I want it to be a 1 in the sense of fresh and new and
new beginnings.
New things coming.
Okay.
So happy birthday from all of us. We love you so much, and we love the things that you do.
Ditto.
And the fact that you've been through everything that you've been through, the poop storm that you have been through, and that you continue to focus on how to help other people. We just want you to know we celebrate your life and you being here and what that means to all of us who get the pleasure of breathing your air. So thank you so much.
I'm speechless.
I'm not going to offend everybody and sing, but happy birthday from everyone. We love you so very much.
Thank you so much. And you know, back at ya. You know how as I said, I wouldn't have been able to get through this last year without this woman sitting right here. And
well, you would have, but there would have been less jokes.
There would have been way less jokes, way less laughter, and tears than laughter. And anyway, you've been tremendously supportive.
Well,
and
friends forever. Happy birthday.
All right. Lucy.
Ethel.
I mean,
Yeah,
Ethel.
she's
I'm
the
Lucy.
Lucy, I'm the
Yeah.
Ethel. All right, there we
Okay.
go. Clearly. So
right.
we'll have some birthday cake.
Okay.
I believe we're out of time, but I can't hear anything in my earpiece because it's that kind of a day. But we promised you Lisette Duarte and her son, and you're going to get them tomorrow. We're going to film it in just a minute.
Okay.
And then you'll get it tomorrow. So it'll be wonderful. But write in and say your happy birthdays to Nancy because she'll appreciate that.
I appreciate
And
every thought and every prayer and every good wish you send my way. I get them, and they mean so much to me.
Tomorrow's show is amazing. Lisette Duarte, as I mentioned, we're having an author of a fabulous book, a dad with a son who's on the spectrum. So you're not going to want to miss any of that. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.